PBS News took a kernel of truth about Kamala Harris, and they wrapped it up in one of the biggest lies you'll ever hear about Kamala, and it's almost subtle. And this came just before this recent interview she did where she sat down with Stephanie Ruhle. Now, you remember that Stephanie Ruhle had said that Kamala shouldn't go out and do interviews. She defended her decision to not do interviews, and then Kamala went and did an interview with her. Stephanie Ruhle has effectively endorsed Kamala, so it would be like President Trump coming in here with me, because I'm going to vote for President Trump in a heartbeat. Now, I probably have some tougher questions for President Trump than Stephanie Ruhle had for Kamala Harris. I would look President Trump in the eye and say, I understand that you brought RFK Jr. on and he's going to look into the three-letter agencies and the CDC. I see that Robert Redfield has endorsed you, sir, because he thinks you're the person who can right-size the country and, in fact, so-called public health. But let me please ask you this. Will you promise on this program to let RFK Jr. have a full access to all the data around the injections? And if it's proven that they knew this stuff would kill people, will you back a criminal charge against everybody involved, including Tony Fauci? Now, I don't know what President Trump would say to that, but it would be a different interview than Kamala Harris went through with Stephanie Ruhle. Stephanie Ruhle asked Kamala Harris if people can trust her. Now, this is really helpful to have the video version of the show. For those who don't, I'll describe it.
Can we trust you? Yes. Yes. I am not
perfect. Okay, so look, she nods her head, yes, yes, and then subconsciously starts to shake her head, no, no.
Perfect. But I will tell you, I'm always going to put the needs of the people first.
I'm always going to put the needs of the people first. Such as when I stole their votes. Such as when I seized the nomination from Joe Biden. Such as when I refused to have an open convention and an open conversation, an open voting period. Such as when I made people accept me having been shoved down their throats. I'm always going to put the needs of the people first. Such as the open borders. Such as allowing drug cartels to run wild in the country. Such as, and so on. And she's shaking her head subconsciously because she knows she can't be trusted. Prior to her doing this, they sent out Doug Emhoff, her husband, to go make a strong case in a very, very difficult interview on ABC.
There's still a lot of voters out there that said, we need to know more about Vice President Harris. What do you say to them about who she is?
In my DNC speech, I called her the joyful warrior. So it's the joyful part, my wife, the one who's there for our family is going to be there for your families, but she's also the warrior. And I think Donald Trump got the warrior part up on that debate stage. She's somebody who spent her entire life for the people. Donald Trump has spent his entire life for himself.
60 days ago, President Biden made the decision to step aside, and
Did you hear that? President Biden made the decision to step aside. He has said, effectively, members of his party forced him out. Nancy Pelosi has admitted she did what she had to do. She forced him out. That's not the biggest lie. It's a big one. The bigger one came from PBS. Joe Biden did not make the decision to stand down. And that continued. The conversation with Doug Emhoff continued.
Even a brighter spotlight than you were before. So how would things change for you in the past 2 months?
Oh, not much, you know. No, it's been a whirlwind. And that day when President Biden decided to step aside on the campaign.
Okay, pause. Right there, he's repeating a talking point given him by the ABC Good Morning America host. When President Biden made the decision to stand aside, and again, he was forced out. Now listen to Emhoff.
She got up there and stepped up. Like, we needed a leader, and she stepped into the breach. And it's just like she is the best, most badass version of the Kamala Harris we know and I love very much.
Yeah, she just stepped up. She was shocked and stunned. She was neither shocked nor stunned because she was part of the conversation. When it was convenient for her to pretend that the man was mentally crisp and mentally adept, that's what she did. And then when it came time to force him out through blackmail, it seems, with the 25th Amendment, Seymour Hersh wrote about this. Longtime investigative reporter in D.C. wrote about this. It was Barack Hussein Obama who made the phone call to Biden, according to Hersh, to say, Joe, you either step aside or we invoke the 25th Amendment and you lose the presidency. And Kamala takes that over. So perhaps Emhoff is right. Perhaps she is warrior. Well, except warriors fight in public. I mean, they declare war. Sure, there's secret missions, but they declare war. That's not being a warrior. It's being an assassin. When you look at that level of corruption, and we'll get to the PBS lie, understand this, that it is tied strictly in to our financial system. If you are watching this and are listening to it on Thursday, the 26th of 2024, this afternoon at 3:30 Pacific, there is a free live webinar with my friend Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management. And Zach is taking this free live webinar and he is dedicating it to analyzing how current events are affecting people's retirement portfolios today, how that's happened over the past quarters or two, and how it might fall out in the future. Your retirement was created during a time where there were rules. Those rules are gone. Has your retirement account been adjusted for that? At Bulwark Capital Management, they're obsessed with risk management, and they do that by actively managing every portfolio which can reduce risk and volatility. Zach will explain this during this free live webinar. He always leaves time for questions. So if you can still get in, do. You have to register to attend. It's a free event, but you have to register. Go to knowyourriskradio.com. That's KNOW, knowyourriskradio.com. And from our friends in the government, I have to have my friend Russ Simber tell you this.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.
Jonathan Capehart and fake conservative David Brooks were having a conversation on PBS. And, of course, the topic of the great Kamala Harris came up, that woman who stepped into the breach. She was just shocked. Whoa, wow, Joe made the decision to stand aside finally after 6 months of pressuring him. Made the decision to stand down so she could carry out her plan engineered by the people who run her. On PBS, they took a kernel of truth about her and wrapped it up in a huge lie.
But you wrote, right now, I'd say Kamala Harris is benefiting from the beginning of a cultural shift and is beginning to have the cultural winds at her back. Donald Trump is beginning to be slapped in the face by those winds. Tell me more.
That's such a good opening. You should do that every week. I've been traveling a lot. I've been in 13 or 14 states in the last 2 weeks. Some red, like Nebraska and Kansas. Some blue, like Colorado and New York and California. And one thing I've noticed is people talking about negativity. They're just tired of the negativity of our public life. And there's this periods where you go through periods of indignation where people are really angry. But then you can only be angry for so long.
Has he seen the pro-abortion protests with the guillotines? You know, this happened outside the Supreme Court Justice's homes. That was illegal, of course. Merrick Garland did nothing about that. Has he seen the toppling of statues in colleges? Did he watch as janitors were taken captive for a couple of days in elite universities by trust fund babies? Did he see the recent seizure of the New York City subway system by people who were wearing Palestinian and pro-Hamas gear? Did he watch any of that? Because the anger and frustration is only on the right in the world of that man. Whereas Kamala Harris, of course, she has nothing disparaging to say about America. It's all hope and joy because she's a very joyful person.
And Donald Trump won because people were really indignant. But my sense is that they've had enough of it. In the 1960s and early 1970s, there were 4,000 bombings on American college campuses. It was a Days of Rage, it was called. By 1974, they're into Est and Crystal and New Age stuff. And so people eventually get tired of all the negativity. And I think that cultural pivot is happening right now at a time when Kamala Harris, and she's not because she's reading it, it's just who she is cheerful and joyful, and let's not be negative all the time, and let's have a good time as a country.
Keep that in mind. Let's have a good time as a country. The Democrats are the party of free cake, and this isn't mine. This came from Red State years ago, and it's a great, great metaphor. The Democrats offer free cake for everybody. All too often, the Republicans are playing it as saying you can't have any cake. Right now, the Democrats and the left and Mitch McConnell and the people at the Chamber of Commerce and the people at the CEO Roundtable are saying to illegal immigrants, free cake. Just come and get it. Which puts Republicans in the position of saying, no, you can't have any cake, when the truth is there is no cake. We are a bankrupt nation. These things are facts. We are structurally bankrupt. We are also being structurally and purposely crushed by this joyful woman who's saying, let's go out and have a good time. We're not even to the big lie yet.
And so I think she's benefiting from the cultural pivot. Is it enough to candor the White House? No, but it helps.
Jonathan, that word joy, Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, when
this was an invented talking point, and it was put in place because Kamala Harris is awkward. She is not sure of herself. She knows she's an imposter. That laugh is not a laugh of a secure person. It is a giggle of an immature teenage girl who knows she doesn't belong in this position. Even CNN admitted this in a long 6-minute piece that she was a deficit to Biden because of the way she speaks and the way she laughs. So they've rebranded it Joy. Emhoff knows this. Brooks knows this. Capehart knows this. The PBS host knows this.
She sat down with the three reporters from the National Association of Black Journalists today. One of them asked her about how she views attacks on her joyful warrior approach. And she defended it. And she said people will try to sometimes use your best asset against you. What do you make of that and this notion that she's benefiting from a cultural wave?
I don't think she's benefiting from a cultural... Yes, she is. And I read your column, David. It's not so much that she's riding, she's like, see this wave coming and she's riding. No, she is part of the culture. And that's why I think when she became the top of the ticket, everyone marveled at how quickly the light flipped.
Pause. She is part of the culture. Kamala Harris is whatever leftist culture tells her she must be. She is a Kamala bot, completely programmable. No one believes that she is not a creation of billions of dollars in free media. This is a woman who is and was the border czar. Our border does not exist. It's been purposely overrun. It's being purposely used in the Cultural Revolution against us. She is and was the woman in charge of the Rural Broadband Initiative, which has delivered zero broadband at the cost of many, many billions of dollars. She is and was the woman in charge of that. And when Elon Musk had been awarded a bid, his bid had been rewarded to offer his Starlink to homes. After he spoke in favor of President Trump, that bid was taken away. It was stolen from him. And they started choosing companies that will do this at 10 to 100 times the cost, which is still not bringing broadband to homes. She is and was the last person in the room when Joe Biden made the decision to have a disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan if Biden, in fact, made that decision. Someone did, probably not him. When the billions of dollars of free media poured in, it came in with a new brand. She's a joyful warrior. They're talking about this here. None of this was organic. And it's a massive lie for him to say everyone was astonished. When you take the most powerful media organizations in the world and you aim your guns at rebranding her as a joyful warrior, even as you brand President Trump as very literally Hitler himself, though orange, we're astonished? No, Jonathan Capehart, you're lying.
Light switch flipped. That can, and it happened so organically.
Organically. You know, that's the big lie. This was organic. A woman who couldn't get 1% in Iowa in the previous election, a woman who was a drag on the ticket according to her paymasters at CNN, or at least her partners at CNN, a woman who couldn't win a single vote. So they shoved her down the throat of people. This came about organically. People were told in a country where there's only two choices, this is your new choice. And there was a sense of relief of people going, oh my gosh, at least it's not Biden. But this was organic joy and adopting the new dear leader. Now listen to more of this.
That to me says you can't manufacture that. She was able to do that because she is the culture. She is part of the culture. She's part of what's driving this culture that I think you said will slap Donald Trump in the face. It's slapping him in the face now, which is why I think he's so discombobulated.
How do they view Trump, and how do they know he's discombobulated? They don't. She is the culture. Remember the thing about, let's go have a good time, America. Hey, if you're in kindergarten, here's how to masturbate with a vegetable. Have a good time. If you're in ninth grade, here's how to go have sex orgies. Have a good time. She is culture. Hey, if you are a female boxer, enjoy getting your face beat in. I mean, lay back and enjoy it, so to speak. Let's have a good time. She is culture. And right now, on the left, culture is all about what? The thrill of the flesh. Period. Period. Kamala Harris is the culture. And the culture is what's allowing the people forcing the cultural revolution down our throats to succeed. So they took a truth, she is the culture, and around that, they wrapped it around this lie that this was all organic, because they know exactly what they're doing at PBS.